Stand on the northern edge of the Waitemata Harbour around the year 1250 and look south. There is no Auckland, no Harbour Bridge, no ferries, no sky tower, no European town. Across the water, volcanic ridges rise beneath dense forest. Birds fill the landscape, beaches curve into sheltered bays, and somewhere beyond the horizon, people are coming. They are Polynesian navigators crossing thousands of kilometers of open Pacific using stars, winds, currents, and generations of voyaging knowledge. Aotearoa is one of the last major habitable landmasses on Earth to be permanently settled. When those voyagers arrive from East Polynesia between roughly 1250 and 1300, they enter a world unlike the tropical islands their ancestors knew. Colder winters, enormous forests, flightless birds, new coastlines. Within generations, the newcomers become a people distinct to these islands, Maori. And this creates the question that drives our entire story. What happens when a society builds a world in isolation, then suddenly becomes connected to empires, global trade, industrial war, and mass migration? Keep watching this harbor. Pa will rise on volcanic hills. Muskets will alter warfare. British ships will arrive. A treaty will be signed in two languages whose meanings do not perfectly match. Land will become the center of conflict. A colonial capital will rise across the water, then lose that status. Gold will transform the South. Refrigerated ships will connect farms to British markets. Women will win the parliamentary vote before anywhere else in the self-governing world. New Zealand soldiers will die overseas. Maori families will move into cities. A land march will force old grievances back into politics. Te Reo Māori will become an official language. New Zealand will challenge powerful allies over nuclear ships. Earthquakes will destroy parts of a modern city. And by 2026, this isolated country will be deeply connected to the Pacific and the world. But the meaning of the land in front of it will change again and again. This is New Zealand evolving. This is not the modern capital, that will be Wellington. But this harbor gives us something more useful: a crossroads. Tamaki Makaurau is valuable because waterways connect east and west coasts, fishing grounds lie nearby, and volcanic soils support cultivation. Long before skyscrapers, this country is already valuable. The story does not begin with empty land waiting for a city. It begins with people choosing, naming, cultivating, and defending places. The first settlers explore quickly. They hunt moa and seals, fish, and cultivate kumara where climate allows. They discover punamu in the South Island and move it through exchange networks. As generations pass, people develop systems suited to Aotearoa. Whānau connect into hapū and iwi. Whakapapa ties people to ancestors and places. Mana shapes authority. On strategic hills, fortified pa appear. Around Tamaki Makaurau, volcanic cones become defended settlements surrounded by terraces, storage pits, and gardens. The landscape itself becomes architecture. Then nature reminds everyone that this is still an active volcanic region. Maori around Auckland witness eruptions associated with rangitoto. Imagine smoke and lava altering the harbour horizon. For centuries afterward, the view changes slowly. Then an object appears that no one here has seen before: a European sailing ship. In 1642, Dutch explorer Abel Tasman reaches New Zealand waters. The encounter is brief and violent. He never establishes a settlement. More than a century passes. Then James Cook arrives in 1769 and maps much of the coastline. After Cook come sealers, whalers, traders, and missionaries. At first, Europeans are few, but what they bring has enormous effects. Potatoes change food production. Iron tools change work. Christianity introduces new beliefs, and muskets transform warfare. During the early 19th century, iwi with firearms can overwhelm rivals without them. The musket wars cause death, displacement, and migration. Tamaki is affected as communities leave and later return. The harbor looks Maori, but the balance around it is shifting. Foreign ships are no longer rare. Settlers are arriving. Land transactions multiply. And Britain begins worrying that if it does not establish authority, another power might. Everything now moves toward one meeting in the Bay of Islands, February 1840. At Waitangi, British representatives and rangatira debate a treaty. More than 40 chiefs sign on February 6th. Copies then travel around the country, eventually gathering hundreds more signatures. But there is a problem embedded in the foundation itself. The Maori and English texts are not identical in meaning. The English version speaks of sovereignty. The Maori text uses kawanatanga, while guaranteeing tino rangatiratanga over lands and taonga. Different people can leave the same agreement believing they have accepted different relationships. That ambiguity will grow with the colony. Here in Tamaki Makaurau, Ngāti Whātua leaders support the establishment of a new colonial capital beside the Waitemata. Auckland begins rising across our harbor. Trees fall. Survey lines appear. Wooden buildings become streets. Ships multiply. Auckland becomes the colonial capital in 1841. A European town growing beside a Maori world. For a moment, cooperation and trade coexist. Then, land hunger accelerates. The promise at Waitangi collides with colonization. European migration increases rapidly during the 1840s and 1850s. Settlers want farmland. Governments want roads and political control. Maori communities want to retain authority over land that supports identity and economic independence. Tension becomes war. Fighting begins in the north in 1845. Later conflicts erupt around Taranaki, Waikato, and elsewhere. In 1863, imperial and colonial troops invade Waikato. Large areas of Maori land are eventually confiscated. The consequences extend far beyond the battlefield. Communities are displaced, economic bases weakened, and grievances pass between generations. From Auckland Harbour, troops and supplies move through a growing military and commercial center. Then, in 1865, something surprising happens. Auckland loses the capital. Government moves south to Wellington, chosen as a more central location. The harbour city keeps growing anyway. Power has moved. Commerce stays. And elsewhere, another force is accelerating the colony. Gold. Gold discoveries in the 1860s pull thousands toward Otago and the west coast. Migrants arrive from Britain, Australia, Europe, and China. Roads, ports, and railways expand. Then, in 1882, a ship called Dunedin leaves New Zealand, carrying frozen meat to Britain. That successful voyage changes the country's economic possibilities. Before refrigeration, distance makes exporting fresh meat difficult. Now, New Zealand farms can feed consumers on the other side of the world. Frozen meat and dairy exports tie the economy to British markets. A remote colony becomes commercially close to Europe. In 1893, women win the right to vote in parliamentary elections. New Zealand becomes the first self-governing country to grant women that right. Then, the 20th century begins, and a generation is asked to prove loyalty to an empire thousands of kilometers away. 1914. Britain enters war with Germany. New Zealand enters too. Men leave ports around the country. In April 1915, New Zealand troops land with Australian forces at Gallipoli. The campaign fails to achieve its strategic objective. The fighting is brutal. Chinook Bear becomes one of the most remembered New Zealand actions. Gallipoli does not create New Zealand nationhood by itself, but Anzac memory becomes part of how later generations understand sacrifice and identity. On the Western Front, the cost becomes even greater. Thousands do not return. The country emerges with a stronger identity. In 1945, most Maori still live outside major cities. Then, movement accelerates. Jobs in manufacturing and construction pull families toward Auckland, Wellington, and other urban centers. Government policies also encourage relocation. By the early 1970s, a clear majority of Maori are living in urban areas. Auckland's suburbs spread. Factories expand. Motorways cut through neighborhoods. The Harbour Bridge opens in 1959. But urban opportunity has a cost. Moving away from ancestral communities can weaken access to language, marae, and tribal networks. Māori also build new urban organizations and marae. The culture changes form rather than disappearing. New Zealand itself is changing too. In 1947, Parliament adopts the Statute of Westminster, confirming legislative autonomy from Britain. Independence has not arrived on one dramatic day. It has accumulated. Then, in the 1970s, the country is forced to look backward again. September 1975, a march begins at Te Hapū in the far north. Its message is simple: not one more acre of Māori land. Led by Fina Cooper, marchers travel south. More people join. By the time the hikoi reaches Parliament in Wellington, land grievances that governments often treated as history are physically standing at the door. The Waitangi Tribunal is created to hear Māori claims about treaty breaches. In 1985, it gains power to investigate claims dating back to 1840. The past is no longer merely commemorated. It can be examined, argued, and negotiated. Treaty settlements follow. Language becomes another battlefield. For decades, Te Reo Māori declines sharply. Activists, educators, and communities fight to reverse that loss. Kohanga Reo and Māori medium education expand. In 1987, Te Reo Māori becomes an official language. Listen to modern New Zealand carefully, and you can hear history changing in place names, broadcasting, schools, and government. The Māori world that colonial society once expected to fade is increasingly visible inside national identity. And New Zealand is also deciding how independent it wants to be internationally. During the 1980s, opposition to nuclear weapons and nuclear-powered ships becomes a defining political issue. New Zealand refuses access to a United States naval vessel when its nuclear status cannot be confirmed. The dispute damages the ANZUS defense relationship. In 1987, nuclear-free legislation establishes New Zealand as a nuclear weapon-free zone. For a small country accustomed to larger allies, the symbolism is powerful. Distance no longer has to mean dependence. Then nature interrupts politics. New Zealand sits across an active plate boundary. Earthquakes have always been part of life here, but modern cities create modern vulnerability. In September 2010, a major earthquake strikes Canterbury. Then, on February 22, 2011, a magnitude 6.3 quake hits near Christchurch. Buildings collapse. 185 people die. The central city is devastated. New Zealand watches rescue teams work through dust and broken concrete. Christchurch begins years of demolition and reconstruction. The event brings back one of the oldest truths in this story. Human systems can become sophisticated. The land has power. Return to North Head. Look across the Waitemata. The pa, forests, and early colonial town have been replaced by Auckland's largest urban skyline. The Sky Tower rises above the city. Container cranes line the port. Ferries cross the harbor. The Harbour Bridge carries traffic between shores once linked only by boat. Modern Auckland is shaped by Maori, Pacific, Asian, and European communities. But here is the final reveal. The greatest transformation is not skyline. It is the story New Zealand tells about itself. For much of colonial history, the national story began with European discovery and British settlement. Today, that beginning is impossible to defend. The story begins with Polynesian voyagers, Tangata Whenua and Aotearoa before New Zealand. The treaty is no longer a document locked in 1840. It remains part of law, politics, protest, and public identity. Te reo Māori is heard where generations ago it was discouraged. The nation still debates partnership, sovereignty, equality, and historical redress. The argument itself shows the story is still moving. Our camera watched Polynesian navigators reach one of the last major lands settled by humans. It watched a distinct Maori world develop. It watched pā rise on volcanic hills. It watched European ships turn rare encounters into permanent contact. It watched muskets change warfare. It watched the Treaty of Waitangi promise a relationship whose meanings were contested from the beginning. It watched Auckland rise as a colonial capital. It watched land hunger turn politics into war. It watched the capital move to Wellington while Auckland kept expanding. It watched gold pull migrants south. It watched refrigeration turn distance into an economic advantage. It watched women win the vote. It watched soldiers sail toward Gallipoli and the Western Front. It watched Maori move into cities. It watched a bridge close the gap across this harbor. It watched a land march make old grievances impossible to ignore. It watched the treaty return to national politics. It watched Te reo Māori move toward revival. It watched New Zealand choose a nuclear-free path even when a powerful ally objected. It watched Christchurch fall and rebuild. And now it watches a country that is simultaneously Maori, Pacific, European, Asian, and something created from all of them. That is the strange thing about New Zealand. Its human history is short compared with much of the world. But short does not mean simple. In roughly 8 centuries, these islands have experienced settlement, colonization, war, migration, industrialization, cultural suppression, revival, and modern democracy. Look across the harbor one last time. The sky tower seems permanent. The bridge seems permanent. The city seems fixed. But the Rangitoto itself reminds us that even landscapes change. Every version of this country believed it understood New Zealand. A Maori world, a British colony, a dominion, a Pacific nation, a nuclear-free democracy, a bicultural project, a multicultural society. None of those descriptions is completely false. None is complete. Because nations are not finished objects. They are negotiations between memory and change. From waka crossing the Pacific to aircraft crossing the same ocean. From fortified pā to glass towers. From disputed signatures at Waitangi to debates that still shape Parliament. One harbor, 8 centuries, many versions of New Zealand. And the next one is already being built.